I'd like to welcome you to the Berkley Center today for our talk on understanding religious pluralism in China. My name is Eric Patterson. I'm one of the assistant directors here at the Berkley Center, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about our speaker today. I welcome you here. I think that you know that Georgetown University has a series of initiatives on building a relationship with China. Part of that is housed here at the Berkley Center. This notion of religion and modernity in China is a key focus area for the center. We see it as a complex, crucial, and often misunderstood topic. China has a rich religious history spanning thousands of years, and it's not just Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, but it's also Christianity, it's Islam, and a variety of folk practices and beliefs. In the decades since the Cultural Revolution, religion has resurfaced as an important factor in Chinese culture and society, accelerated by trends in globalization. The Berkley Center's Religion and Modernity in China project examines the shifting religious constellation in China and its implications for that country's future in terms of development and relationships with other countries, particularly the United States. Our speaker today is Dr. Liyong. He's a postdoctoral fellow here at the Berkley Center. His research centers on modernity and religion, on religious pluralism, and comparative religions between Christianity and Chinese religions. He's the author of a book in 2008 titled Modernity and Chinese Religions. He's currently completing a manuscript on the social forms of Chinese religions and a typology of various sects and their pluralist implications. He received his bachelor's from Jianghu University in 1989, a master's degree in philosophy from Wuhan University in 1995, and a PhD in religious studies from Renmin University in 2006. I will say this, that it's been a pleasure for me to get to know Dr. Dai this year as he's been a postdoctoral fellow here. We both have very young daughters, and so we spent time talking about our families. But I've also learned a lot about some of the misperceptions that I had about the religious features of Chinese society today. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming.
Thank you all for coming in this lousy day. My talk originally planned on yesterday, but I told Tom that April 14th is not good. I prefer April 15th. So many of you know that Mr. Obama yesterday on campus. So you will find out. I am the religious guy who knows the future. When I give lectures in Chinese, I sometimes talk about 2 hours before open to the floor. But in English, I'm sure that I don't have same capacity. So I will keep my speech short, so we can have more time on food and discussing. First, let's begin with several quick facts. After Chinese Cultural Revolution, especially after 1990s, all kinds of religious activities recovered and developed very well in China, including Buddhism, Chinese Christianity, Taoism, and the related folk religious activities, and new religious movement like Falun Gong, against the background of Qigong fact. And in the recent several years, the recovery of Confucianism. So here are pictures of Guiyuan Temple in Wuhan. The city of Wuhan is my hometown. This year, the 5th day of the first lunatic month, after 12 p.m., after midnight, 150,000 people swarmed in to Guiyuan Temple. Guiyuan Temple is a very famous old temple established during the Yuan dynasty. That's over 400 years. So you see these people, Guiyang Temple. The majority of them are incense burners. I do this one. Here you see it's the face of a policeman. So he's not concerned about the religious activities. He is concerned about the mass security because everybody burning something. So this is not only in my hometown. In every big city in China today, Beijing, the Lama Temple. Lama Temple is a very famous temple, a Tibetan Buddhist temple, established about over 200 years ago. So that's I believe, is the first day of the lunar month of last year in Beijing. About 300,000 people swarmed in this Lama temple. So this happens everywhere. So from this picture you will see Chinese Buddhism are very, very popular. Now, Daoism. Daoism is not as popular as Buddhism in China today. According to my research and my theoretical calculation, in Chinese history, Daoism always counts as maybe 1/4 of Buddhism in terms of population. But still, you cannot belittle Daoism because many folk religious activities are related to Daoism. So they are still very visible. Now, Chinese Christianity. In these days, in recent years, people are talking about the rapid development of Chinese Christianity. Some believe that Chinese Christianity underground plus the official underground church plus the official church totally may sum up to over 100 million. But according to more reliable statistics, Chinese Christianity may sum up between 60 million to 80 million. So these pictures are collected by one of colleagues. The 100 bench. These are 100 cushions. They are all taken from underground church. 100 house church, the inside view, outside view. So this is Chinese Christianity. Today, in Chinese Christianity developed very well, especially in 3 provinces: Henan province, Anhui province, and Shandong province, plus half a province in Wenzhou, Zhejiang province. Now, new religious movement. Many of you may know Falun Gong. So the development of Falun Gong against the background of Qigong exercise, the effect of Qigong. Since mid-1980s, Qigong became increasingly popular among all circles of Chinese people. Qigong, they borrowing from Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism. And ironically, before 1999, Qigong was administered under the State Sports Department. But only after 1999, Beijing administrative realized that this is not only a sport; these are religious phenomena. So now Qigong was banned after 1999. And from the 1980s, since 1980s, we have a number of Qigong group, 贺祥庄 Qigong. When I was very young, I see lots of people practice 贺祥庄. But in 1990s, 贺祥庄 Qigong disappeared because new Qigong groups emerged, and such as 延心 Qigong, 中宫, 香宫, 元吉宫, 四兰宫, 法轮功. And 法轮功 actually was a latecomer with more religious teachings. So 法轮功, according to the leader of 法轮功, the self-reported number of Falun Gong was over 100 million, but actually it is not. It cannot be that high. So finally, during the recent years, the recovery of Confucian rituals. This is a sacrificial ceremony for Huangdi, the first ancestor of Chinese people. You will see these ceremonies were actually sponsored and presided by the local government. So those communist cadres, very high cadres. You will see this one, the member of Chinese political bureau. So that's the central administration, the member of the central administration. They all take part in these ceremonies. So in recent years, 3 big ceremonies was held. The ceremony for Confucius, the ceremony for Huangdi, the ceremony for Yandi, which are called Big Three ceremonies. These Big Three, in recent years, among Chinese intellectuals, aroused a big debate because Chinese intellectuals are discussing that these pictures, whether they are public ceremony or state ceremony, why those local government use public money to take these ceremonies. This is an image of Confucius. So now the sacrificial ceremony for Confucius. You will see lots of pupils were even brought out because these ceremonies were held by local administration. Primary school students. Today, Confucius became so popular. Even some people from entertainment circle use the icon of Confucius. So now, the President of the Republic of China, Taiwan, Mr. Ma Ying-jeou, Ma Sheng-zhang. So you will see in Taiwan Republic, the Republic of China, Taiwan, public ceremony held, sponsored, presided over actually by the president, not the monk, not the priest. So Ma Ying-jeou also take part in the ceremony for Confucius. So these are the recovery of Confucianism. So how to put all these religious phenomena into one whole picture? What's the whole image of Chinese spirituality? By Chinese religion or Chinese spirituality, I refer to the religious or spiritual phenomena of the people who use Chinese as their mother language. So in the following minutes, I want to discuss sociological typology of Chinese religions, which I developed in recent years. When talking about the social forms of religion, people always think of church, denomination, sect, cult, and new religious movements, and so on. But unfortunately, all these categories are based on Judeo-Christian societies. All these categories, I can say that they doesn't apply to East Asian at all. So I developed this typology, sociological typology, based on the structure, the characteristic structure of Chinese society. 会堂、丛林、江湖、教门. This is very difficult for translation into English. I am trying to translate these 4 basic categories into one single word categories in English, but some of them I cannot find a word in English. For example, 会堂, I'm trying to translate into Confucclesia. I create this word. I mean the Confucian ecclesia. Of course, 会堂 literally means Confucian Assembly Hall. Confucian Assembly Hall is somehow different from ecclesia, but I must translate. So I translate this typology into Confucclesia, forest, Jianghu, and Sect. So after develop this typology, I develop this asymmetric concave curve, and then I will make quick comparison between this concave curve and bell-shaped curve. You may all know this bell-shaped curve. This bell-shaped curve applies to the Christian-based society, but doesn't apply to Chinese society. So I will make quick comparison between the two. Now, first, 会堂 Confucclesia. By Confucclesia, I mean the mainline social system in traditional China, which provide a public communicative sphere regulated by Confucian principles. We have 2 subtypes: primary Confucclesia, secondary Confucclesia. The extended family group, and the lineage are primary Confucclesia, which formed a specific special differentiation characterized by the Confucian patriarchal consanguinity. The imperial institutions of county, eparchy, province, and royal court are secondary Confucclesia, which made a stratified differentiation that was hinged on and reproduced by the Confucian state examination. Both the primary and secondary Confucclesia were multifunctional institutions, and the Confucian state examination organically linked the two, so as to make a systemic whole. So you will see both primary and secondary Confucclesia, they are multifunctional, including political, economical, cultural, education, and water control and religion. So this is a picture of Citang, the symbolic building of primary Confucclesia. Also Citang. These buildings in traditional Chinese society they are very well. For example, I was born in a village which named Daoist village because its surname was Dai, and actually all the residents in the village are the descendants of one common ancestors, Daoist village, and the neighboring village Yang, village Chen, village Wu. So in each village there should be a building like this, Citang. And in Citang they do ancestral ceremonies, and they do some other Confucian ceremonies. Now, I focus on the religious property of Confucclesia. Although the sacrificial activities in the system of Confucclesia manifested a feature of rationality, the religious side of Confucclesia, a multifunctional social system, was nevertheless in conflict. Weber was perceptive when he observed that both the rise in the state sacrificial ceremonies and other Confucian sacrifices ignore the contingence and suffering of the individual. In other words, Confucian teaching took the path of elitism, which was excessively optimistic about one's ultimate transformation, and consequently left a large space for other religious traditions like Buddhism and Daoism to serve the spiritual needs of the mass and to take care of a troubled self. Now we come to the second type, B, forest. Forest was the legitimate, meaningful communicative space outside the mainline system of Confucclesia, and to a certain degree recognized by the Confucclesia. It should be noted that in traditional Chinese society, both Buddhism and Daoism called their own temples or monasteries as Conglin, which literally means forest. In forest, Confucian principles of social structure and the mechanism for the closure of communicative actions were no longer effective. In general, Daoism was teaching and practice about various disciplines for achieving immortality, spontaneity, or perfection away from worldly affairs, whereas Chinese Buddhism focused on wisdom and practice of liberation from the suffering in one's endless cycle of life. Compelled with Confucclesia, forest constituted the serene retreat in the Chinese culture, which kept aloof from the bustling life and politics in and between the separated primary Confucclesias. In other words, forest was the other of Confucclesia. As different social space, Confucclesia was the main line and the center of the society, while forest was the corner, the periphery, and the backyard. The members of the forest, or individuals that communicated with one another in the place of forest, could be divided into three types. A, professional clergy who belong to forest, and B, laity who partly belong to forest, and C, incense burners who temporarily belong to forest. So you will see, largely the forest is a single function institution. The picture of Buddhist temple. Inside view. So here, monks are at the dinner hall. Incense burners. Better view. Now, Taoist temples, they are somehow different. This picture was taken, I believe, in the famous monastery mountains, Qingchengshan. Here you see Taoist temples. So, because three subtypes of people belongs to or temporarily belongs to the forest, so you will find that the social boundaries of forest was open and vague. The function of forest includes the following. First, many people go to forest for the purpose of religious consumption. including mountain pilgrimage, 朝山, incense burners, 敬香, making wish, 许愿, and return wish, 还愿, and religious donations, 布施功德. Second, one may follow the teachings of the monks or the Daoist women, or even to be semi-ordained by the master in the forest and become a secular disciple, become a 居士, 俗弟子. Third, forests often become the leading resorts in the local. Even those Confucian intellectuals who openly criticize Buddhism or Daoism, they sometimes visit place of forest from time to time for the purpose of vacation, sightseeing, leisure activities, or some other cultural telos. So this is the second type, forest. Now, see, Jianghu. The Chinese character Jianghu literally means rivers and lakes. By the term of Jianghu, I refers to the great and dispersed public communicative spheres that are inter-primary Confucclesias and beyond the cybernetic range of system of the secondary Confucclesia, and outside the communicative space of forest. 5 kinds of groups played and developed in the great public spheres of Jianghu. Great public groups, violent groups, commercial groups, great religious groups, and middle groups. So I will skip this detail. Now I deal with religious activities in the great and public spheres of Jianghu. There are a variety of communicative actions that took place in Jianghu and pointed to the transcendent dimension, which I classify into 5 subtypes. First one, local cults. In Chinese we call it 淫词, which literally means extra and unnecessary temples and extra and unnecessary sacrifice. Both in the past and today, the religious phenomena of this kind prevail in China. If you go to Hong Kong, you will probably know Huang Daxian. So Huang Daxian is a perfect example of local cults. In my hometown, there's a different local cults like Mulan Shan, the worship of Mulan god. The basic features of the local cults in traditional Chinese society can be rendered as follows. A, they were based on oral religious statement. B, objects of the local worship were usually fetishes, natural beings that had characteristic topography, like a steep mountain, or that related to accidental events, or the transformation of heroes or historic figures. C, they were often mixed up with or manifested as local folk customs. D, they did not belong within the orthodoxy of these 3 teachings, Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. They did not strictly belong to the orthodox of these 3 teachings. And strictly speaking, there are no institutions or no professionals at all. So these are the local cults. From my point of view, the Mazu worship in Taiwan and Fujian province, they belong to local cults. The second one, worship of Guan Yu. Guan Yu was a historic figure during the 3 states, about 1,700 years ago. The worship of Guan Yu was probably the most wide-ranging religious activities in the great fields, in great areas of Jianghu. All Jianghu persons, including bandits, merit gong, martial arts masters, or unviolent groups like merchant groups, and individuals like wandering performers, merchantmen, itinerant craftsmen, peddlers, street vendors, quacks, beggars, and dislocated roving people. They all worship Guan Yu. It should also be noted that the three established teaching, Buddhism, Daoism, and Confucian, they all try to subsume the worship of Guan Yu into their own system, but none of them completely succeed. Worship of Guan Yu is the third one, sectarian movements. In the degree and public communicative spheres of Jianghu, various religious groups which consisted largely of secular people and had little formal relationship to the established and enduring system of the three teachings emerged and developed. These newly established sects normally had 5 features. A. Syncretism. Sects often borrowed both theoretical and practical resources from the established teachings of Buddhism, Confucian, and Daoism and mixed them in their own way. B. Popular and demotic religious statements. These newly established sects had their own written religious statements which used local dialects and called them treasure scroll, 宝传. C. In sects, usually named as 教, 道, 门, and in their inchoate forms, usually named as 社 and 会. Women might have an equal position which they could not attain in the established system of these three teachings. Some females even led the group. D. Interdependence. Among sects which prevailed in some districts, except as reasons of rapid reformation in religious teaching and practice, would be economic interdependence that attracted powerfully dislocated roving people and peasants who were almost bankrupt, especially during the final phase of each dynasty in Chinese history. E. Erosion against the established religious institutions. New religious movements, new religious groups often divided and depreciated the orthodoxy monks and women in the forests, and asserted that those monks and women led, in fact, a regressive and corrupt life. The same thing happened today. For example, the leader of Falun Gong, in his first popular book, 范法人, he criticized Chinese Buddhism. So there's a very high tension between Chinese Buddhism and Falun Gong. The fourth one, group sacrifice. The establishment and enduring of a group in the three fields of Jianghu depended upon the intervention of God among human beings who otherwise were but a disorderly crowd. It is no surprise then that guilds in traditional China regularly held ceremonies for religious purpose. According to Max Weber, charity organization and common religious worship in the Chinese guilds were not as advanced as those in Europe. One may observe that the entrance fee would be paid to a god so as to protect the money from plunder by local administration, and guilds that were short of funds might gather in a temple. In addition, unlike their Western counterparts, secular plays rather than religious plays were on the stage in the Chinese guilds assembly hall. Thus, Weber concludes that religious concern in the Chinese guilds, which functioned more or less like the religious fraternity, were not powerful enough. This is a group sacrifice. The final one, individualistic religion and the spirit medium. Besides the 4 kinds of religious activities mentioned above, I designate all the rest of the social phenomena in the fields of Jianghu that were more or less religious as individualistic religion, among which were fortune telling, 算命, divination, 谶纬, 风水, many of you know 风水, magic, and 房中. 房中 is sex technique mixed up with some transcendental beliefs. As a plurality of transcendent communications, two essential characters made them typical of grade and dispersion. First, they all use a specific medium as interactive means between the divine beings and human beings. One may observe that the spirit medium in the great fields of Jianghu can be classified into three subtypes. A. Utensils, such as bamboo slips, straw, pictograph, and other plants used in various forms of definition. B. Techniques, which ancient Chinese people called shu, fa, or gong. For instance, spells, gestures, meditations, exercise of qi, qigong, and other magic arts. C. Persons, including fortune tellers, feng shui masters, witches, sorcerers, and other masters. Second, although there were some interrelation between the individualistic religion and the orthodox Buddhism and or Daoism, they were, for the most part, external and contingent. Besides, no formal networks existed before those diversified sorceries, tellers, and witches. Those who consulted a fortune teller, a feng shui master, or sorcerer did so out of mere personal interest and casually resort to them as the occasion elicit. So that's the 5 types of religious activity in the spheres of Jianghu. Now we come to the fourth type, D, sect. Now I apply to the term sect to indicate the religious groups or communities in the great fields of Jianghu that consisted largely in secular people with their own written religious statement, treasured scroll, 宝传, and integrated leadership, and thus were actually in the process of shaping and fixing and not fully established. In Chinese, there are 2 traditional words, 邪教 and 教门, both of which are used to identify the sectarian movements in the great fields of Jianghu. 邪教 literally means evil cult, evil teaching, and 教门 literally means school or teachings, or corridor of teaching. For the purpose of academic study, I take the neutral term 教门 and translate it into English as sect. Although these 2 categories have different connotations in each language, and the religious groups which they denote have different place as well as different structural properties in each society, they do parallel each other to a certain extent. Now, conclusion. The 4 basic types of Chinese religion. In short, the religious phenomena in Chinese society can be divided into 4 basic types. A. Confucclesia religion that was multifunctional and incomplete in religious performance. B. Forest religion that had open and vague boundary and functioned as periphery or retreat backyard in society. C. Unfixed religious activities in Jianghu. And these may include local cult and various individualistic religion. And D, sect. Sect is the newly established religious groups in the great fields of Jianghu that consist of many of secular people with popular, demotic and rhyming religious statements, 宝卷, and integrated leadership, and was often criticized and surprised by the Confucian administration as well as the orthodox practitioners in the forest. Of course, there are lots of interconnections between the four, but I will skip these details. I will only give one example. For example, here, the repartition between forest and Jianghu, between forest and new religious movement. Many of you may know Falun Gong. Before 1999, when Beijing administration labeled Falun Gong as evil teaching, a group of practitioners of Falun Gong go to a Buddhist temple in Houston. They want to borrow a place for their practice, for their activity, and the master of the temple, the name of the temple is I forgot the name in Houston. And the master there is Jinghai. Jinghai master asked them, "May I see your book?" So they gave their book to the master, and the master said, "Book from Falun." After that, the master said, "You cannot come here." That's before Beijing administration labeled Falun Gong as evil teaching. So there's a lot of debate and tension between Chinese Buddhism and Falun Gong. So this example, this sense repartition happens actually 1,000 years. Similar situation. So now I focus on the population tension of these four four basic types. Population. Let here be the 100%. So you will see A1. Here, the population of a system of primary Confucclesia should count at least 80% of the whole population in peaceful period. During the wartime, the story is different. And B1, the population, the total number of the priests in the Buddhist and Daoist temples fluctuated in the range of, I don't know how to pronounce it. That's based on my own research and my theoretical calculation. Since the Song Dynasty, 1,000 years ago, in Chinese history, the numbers of the monks and women fluctuated between 0.3% and 25%. So that's the B1. That's the B1. B2. No, A2. Almost everyone in the system of Confucclesia would occasionally make a cultural tower in forest. Even those intellectuals, Confucian intellectuals, they criticize Buddhism and Daoism. They sometimes visit Buddhist and Daoist temples. And A3, a large part of the cultural tourists, except those who criticized and were repulsed by the teachings of Buddhism and Daoism, would kneel down before the gods in forest and became an occasional incense burner, as the situation illicit. For example, myself, I always visit Buddhist and Daoist temples, but I never do incense burning, because frankly speaking, I think that's like something like a magic. that's a bribe God. How can you bribe God? So intellectuals, they always, they may visit temples, but they don't do incense burning. That's A3. Now, B3. Among occasional incense burners, some might return to forest regularly and become a constant incense burner. That's B3. And now B2. Amateur practitioners. Among constant incense burners, a number of people might even be partially ordained by priests and transform into amateur practitioners, 居士. It should be added here that the amateur practitioners who partly belong to the forest usually outnumbered the professional practitioners in forest. Now we consider C1, C2, C3. As for the local cults and various individualistic religions in the great public spheres of Jianghu, given that the interconnection between the unfixed religious activities and the forest, or a plurality of symbioses, adoption, repulsion, and so on, the population involved in and the tension of it should be between those of cultural tourists and constant incense burners, with the exception of some shady illegal magic, which have higher degree of tension between forest and sex. C3. D. The point of Falun Gong. As we have seen, sects were newly established groups which consisted largely of secular people. Thus, it is apparent that the population involved in sects were usually far beyond the total sum of priests in the forest. For example, the Dong-Da-Cheng sect in the Ming Dynasty, for example, had more than 2 million disciples, whereas monks and women, Taoist women in the forest summed up only to about 500,000 in the same period. 3 social factors were related to the population of the sects. A. Population involved in the niches across occasional incense burner and constant incense burner. Here. B. Individualistic religion in development districts. And C. The total number of dislocated European people in the society. Now, I make a quick comparison between the bell-shaped curve and this one. The asymmetrical concave curve has a very rich pluralist implication. First, the distribution of tension across religious niches in China presents a manifest concave appearance. Second, since forest has open and vague boundaries and the religious performance of the system of Confucclesia is incomplete, thus, in and between the two social systems shape a series of transitional religious niches where people can double belong or even multiple belong. This area. In other words, a state of symbiosis exists to a certain extent among the pluralized religious groups or activities. It follows then that the area between the asymmetric concave curve and the two axes of x and y is not equal to but greater than the total sum of the population in Chinese society. So the area here is larger than the total population of Chinese society. Although there's no statistic figure which can support directly my deduction, I have indirect support. For instance, it has been proved statistically that in Japan, a Confucianized country, there were 220 million religious disciples in 1983, while the resident population in the country numbered 120 million. So that's the support. Third, while the sociological research of Western religions could be focused on populations that belong to different religious groups and the distribution of tension across them, it is important for scholars on Chinese religion or East Asian religions to substitute the concept of belong to, membership, identification, etc., with a plurality of statistic items that are more or less inclusive with one another: cultural tourist, occasional incense burner, constant incense burner, amateur practitioners, and professional practitioners. More critical in this regard is to specify the degree of slope at different points, at different items on this asymmetric concave curve. In other words, to determine how many people that are related to one item would be involved in the next. Now, I want to say that this asymmetric concave curve still applies in post-cultural revolution China. For example, one of my colleagues made research on all students in Beijing University. The number of the students who has strong interest in Christianity are 3%. You can imagine if they had chance to take part in the Confucian ceremonies, the number will be very much high. In the beginning, I already showed that although the Confucian ceremonies only recovered for several years, they involved the most population and the most high-level officials. So if the situation develops, this asymmetrical concave curve still apply to Chinese religion. And it may also apply to the Confucianized districts in Asia: Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Taiwan. So let A be the Shintoism. So the Shintoism would be 90% of the whole population of Japan. So that's the A1, and A2, A3, and Buddhism and Daoism. And there are some religious groups, they are highly exclusive with each other. There are new religious groups and other weird things. So that would be here. But the only difference is that in a modern democratic society, this curve will not disappear here abruptly because it will like this. Well, so long as the tension grows, population will come down swiftly. Because this only happens in an undemocratic society like China. Because if the administrative put a neighbor on Falun Gong, then it fails. So that's this model applies to the East Asian. And this symmetric model and the asymmetric concave curve may also have applicability to the landscape of religious pluralism in the United States today, given that the inter-religious activity in the country grow. Let A be the mainline Christian church or denomination. They are liberal, very much open-minded. So, how many as the pluralist situation grows, how many of them will visit other religious place of others, and how many of them will practice yoga practice Qigong meditation, and how many of them will make a pilgrimage to India, to Tibet, or listen to preachers of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So, and finally, how many of them will convert to Buddhism? All became Guru. So this asymmetric complete curve still apply. And C1, C2, C3, it would be a new paganism, New Age movement, things like that, and Wish, and many other real things. And here, of course, we have fundamentalism, which are higher, which are more exclusive with each other. And we have weird things, cards, something like that. So these curves still may apply to US today. So I went.
We've got slightly over, but I'm sure there's some questions. We're going to take time for 2 questions. If you must slip out, please do. And then we'll formally end. And then if you have additional questions beyond that, you can stay after and talk to Dr. Daoist. So does anyone have a question that they'd like to ask Dr. Daoist?
I came in late, excuse me, but we've been talking about your arguments now for over a year, and it's very fascinating. Could you say a little bit about the patterns of multiple belonging? Patterns of, in other words, what combinations does one see, and are those combinations changing in the current era as opposed to 50 or 100 years ago in China?
Actually, I don't see many changes. Let's see these pictures. These people, the majority of them, may go to Buddhist temples, Daoist temples, or sometimes may go to a Christian church. They do the same thing as their forerunners in the past 1,000 years ago.
It's always Buddhism or Taoism plus some individual spiritualities? What kind of patterns are there? The Confucian is sort of the base, and then do you combine the others as well? And is it possible to map out those patterns of multiple belonging?
This particle belonging only applies to religious niches here, not here. Because you have, for example, the Chinese Christianity. They usually are exclusive with those incense burnings. They think that these are superstitions. These are bad things, worship, idolatry. So Chinese members of Chinese Christianity, they don't take part in the incense burning. And I want to add one thing. Today, Chinese Christianity, official Chinese Christianity may be here, and on the ground, Chinese Christianity church may be here. So my theoretical deduction, Chinese Christianity could be theoretically could number between 100 million and 200 million. That is to say, Chinese Christianity still have a large space to grow in the next years.
So this is a question about COVID, kind of similar question. There's a big phenomenon of young people having Christian weddings. So the churches in the large cities are booked up for a long time ahead to have the Christian. Anyway, I've read this. I believe this to be true. Are all those people who have Christian weddings and their families members also of Buddhist belief? it does seem to be, if you look at them and know friends who've done it, that they're not really necessarily exclusively Christian.
So you mean that there are some Chinese Christian followers, they are inclusive to other religious activities?
It almost seems as though they may be a member, or they may follow another religion, but the idea of a wedding in particular is something that these young people want to do.
Or just to clarify, maybe that non-Christians will will seek out a church for a Christian wedding ceremony without identifying with that tradition. Is that a trend that you might see?
I don't see very much chance in that regard. Some people may go to church to have a Christian ceremony, but I think majority of Chinese young Chinese, if they do not believe in God, they will not go to church for marriage.
Well, with that, I invite any of you who would like to stay and ask further questions of Dr. Dai. He started off his presentation by saying that he could talk for 2 hours in Chinese, and he did a nice job of limiting it to himself. I've learned several things, and I'm appreciative not only of the content, but also the photos, which bring a vibrant picture to our minds of how religion is practiced in China. So I hope you'll join me in thanking Dr. Dai.